In November's AILA Interview of the Month, AILA Treasurer Jennifer Menier shares findings from AILA's Marketplace study, which shows that, like many other fields, the gender wage gap exists in immigration law. She shares her own experiences and what can be done. What did the 2016 Marketplace study find?
There are a lot of great pieces of information that came out of that study, and I would encourage all of our members to go to the AILA website and take a look at it. It is accessible there. There's all kinds of interesting data about wide-ranging topics, including the best software immigration packages that everybody uses versus, how satisfied people tend to be with their careers. But what I found to be one of the most noteworthy pieces of information in that study was the apparent gender gap in terms of compensation that female immigration attorneys experience. And it's important to note that there may be a number of factors that contribute to that gap as opposed to just gender. So, for example, someone with more experience may be paid more than someone with less experience. Still, I think there was a pronounced difference in terms of the compensation level between men and women. It seems that men and women tend to begin their immigration law careers at about the same income level, and then the disparity increases over time. One thing that was really striking was that disparity seems to occur regardless of whether the female is employed as part of a larger firm, where their compensation is set by someone else, versus as a solo practitioner. Even solo practitioners have that income gap. So women are, in fact, undervaluing their own work as compared to men. As it turns out, women make about 82 cents on the dollar as compared to men. And as a member of an association whose composition is more than 50% women, I think that's a really striking fact and one that we need to work on and address.
Have you had experiences in your practice of law that brought gender discrepancies to light?
Yeah, and I think, my answer to that question is it's really hard to know sometimes whether you've been discriminated against or not. I mean, I started out my legal career in a large law firm where there was a lockstep progression in terms of compensation. So everyone who was a first-year associate was paid the same amount of money. But bonuses were calculated on a discretionary and independent basis. I have no idea whether my male counterparts were making more in terms of bonus than I was for doing the same or less work. I really don't know. And it's that lack of transparency that I think sometimes contributes to a sense of uncertainty about whether you're being discriminated against at all, whether your work is being undervalued. It's really hard to know very often because you don't know what other people are making in comparison to you.
What can be done to address the gender discrepancies in the practice of law?
Well, I think there are a lot of things that we as a society need to do to address this problem. In terms of our own membership, obviously it's important to provide our members with the tools that they need to evaluate themselves against other people in the profession to get a better sense of whether they may or may not be undervalued as employees in a law firm. And this Marketplace study was a good example of such a tool that we can provide to our members. It's obviously very important for employers to develop transparent and consistent policies that are applied to both men and women, and for men and women to all be a part of that conversation in terms of making sure that the playing field is equal, that everything is open, that the policies are well understood, and the benchmarks that you have to hit in order to reach compensation levels are applied equally to everyone. So that's another thing that we can encourage as a membership organization and that employers should definitely be doing. And finally, I would say that, again, as I mentioned earlier, even solo practitioners are undervaluing their work. Female solo practitioners are undervaluing their work as opposed to men, and compensating themselves less than men who are doing the same work. So that says to me that women in general are possibly undervaluing their work, that they're not looking at the value that they provide and charging accordingly. And so we need to do more to encourage women to do candid self-assessments of the value that they bring and not be afraid to charge for it.
Thank you, Jennifer.